The murder and mayhem continues, above all in Gaza, but also in Lebanon, also in Syria. I've just been looking at a video, a Gaddafi demise-style video, as Bashar al-Assad's cousin, someone called Talal Makhlouf, who was captured, handcuffed, put in the back of a pickup truck, and then savagely assailed. His face and head a mask of blood. I don't know the man. I don't know what, if anything, he has done. If you live by the sword, you're going likely to die by the sword. I'm not shedding any tears for any of the remnants of the Bashar al-Assad government. But I just remind you that these moderates are the ones that we are now paying for. Yes, that's right, the hard-pressed British taxpayer is now paying millions upon millions of dollars to the throat-cutting, head-chopping, heart and lung-eating fanatics who are enforcing dress codes on women of a different religion, who have banned Christmas, kicked over Christmas trees, destroyed lights, told Christian churches in the land of Jesus, who speak the language of Jesus, Aramaic, just in case you didn't know, have been told to cancel Christmas. Now, none of you might care about that. Some of you are more interested in the geopolitics. Some of you are more interested in the sectarian dimension of all of this. I'm equally interested in all of it. The statement that I made on Wednesday, which has attracted millions of views and thousands of comments and a wave of hostility from people who either support the sectarianism, which has brought the Arabs low to their lowest ever point in modern times at least, or they are hirelings of the slave governments who rule their countries in the interests of empire. They get funded for academic posts. They get sinecures in state-owned media, as long as they parrot the prevailing orthodoxy, as long as they toe the dictatorships line. There is a remarkable amount of hypocrisy going around. Really, truly, mind-numbingly, mind-bendingly, incredibly hypocritical. Apparently, dynastic dictatorships are a bad thing. Well, at least they're a bad thing in Syria. They're a good thing in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates, in Jordan. They're fine there. Dynastic dictatorships are fine, as long as the dynastic dictator polishes the boots of the empire, recycles the God-given petrodollars that have been visited upon their lands and waters through the empire, kicks it back, in other words, in arms sales, in property sales, in the stock markets and in the banks of the empire. Do that and you are fine. There's only one Arab country left standing. Its name is Algeria. And lo and behold, today Algeria accused France of beginning to stir up Islamist opposition to the secular republic in Algeria. I don't know the nuts and bolts of it, and the secular government in Algeria isn't much to write home about, to be sure. But it doesn't lick the boots of the empire. It maintains cordial relations with Russia and with China. The Algerian government says that France has reopened its corridor, formerly quite a busy one, to the Islamist rebels that tore Algeria apart in a civil war in the 1990s. The Algerian state is strong, but then that's what we thought about the Syrian state. So watch that space. It might well become a subject of our debate in due course. But going back to Syria. There is no Syria, of course, anymore. Israel occupies 3 times the territory of the Gaza Strip, now inside Syria, and can take whatever it likes. There may be back-channel discussions between them and the Americans about how far they can go, but the fanatics in the state of Israel have already decided that. They regard Syria as part of Greater Israel. They regard Lebanon and Jordan and parts of Saudi Arabia and parts of Iraq as Greater Israel. That's what the 2 blue parallel lines on the Israeli flag mean. From the Nile to the Euphrates, from the Nile in Egypt to the Euphrates in Egypt. Now, people used to think only cranks in Israel stood for that Greater Israel project, but it's a real thing now. After all, you don't have to physically occupy a government or a territory to rule it, as the good people of both Jordan and Egypt already know. The Saudis, to date, have refused to normalize relations with Israel. But most of their neighbors are slaves of the empire and have normalized those relations. I think of Qatar with its ferocious Al Jazeera television network, as long as the ferocity does not affect the red lines of the empire. Qatar has normal relations with Israel. It owns property in Tel Aviv. The last time I was there, the lift opened in my hotel and the Israeli president, Shimon Peres, walked out of the lift. I was there for the BBC's Doha debates. I've written about this many times before. The United Arab Emirates, ditto. The UAE owns a football team in Israel. Israel has an embassy in the UAE. The Israeli Secret Service, Mossad, roam the length and breadth of the UAE. And while these countries are a little shamefaced about it and don't normally crow about it, others are not so shy. Morocco, for example, on the far west of the Arab world, is the place where the killers from Gaza go for their holidays, for rest and recuperation. So, from the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf, the Arab world is a sea of dictatorship, but only one dictatorship deserves to be brought down, and its dynastic leaders deserve to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. It so happens, entirely coincidentally, it's the only Arab dictatorship that still had the name Arab in the title of its state. It's the only Arab dictatorship that didn't have either open or secret relations with Israel. It's the only Arab dictatorship that allowed the Palestinian resistance to make their base there. It's the only Arab dictatorship that allowed the Palestinian resistance to be armed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, through Iraq, through Syria, into Lebanon, and into the hands of the resistance. That may or may not be why it has been overthrown. It may be because they were dynastic. It may be because they were dictatorship. But in that case, it's a little difficult to understand why they, in particular, were singled out. Somebody asked me earlier on social media, what's your view? Why do you ask us to put up with dictatorships as long as they are anti-imperialist? Which is a fair question. It's a fair point. But so is this one. How come you never fight the pro-imperialist dictatorships? How come there's never any jihad in the lands of the Arab dictators who surrendered to Israel long ago, who collaborate with Israel, who belly dance for Israel and for the United States of America? How come you never make any jihads there? That's a fair question, isn't it? Maybe somebody will call us tonight and explain why this particular schizophrenia that afflicts that current, that trend of the Arab world. Now, a lot of people said I should not have washed my hands of 350 million Arabs. Of course, I did not. 2 of my sons are Arabs. In fact, their grandfather's grave in South Lebanon was just desecrated by Israeli invaders just yesterday or the day before. The picture emerged of his grave smashed to pieces and disturbed. His father's grave was even more revoltingly desecrated and could not be shown on the screen. I'm not washing my hands of my own sons. I'm not washing my hands of the thousands, tens of thousands of Arabs who are personal friends of mine. I'm not washing my hands of the good people who've never sold out in the sea of misery that I am describing. People like Dr. Man Bashir and other Nasserist Arab nationalist people, which is the current I have always supported and will always support. I'm not washing my hands of these. Above all, I'm not washing my hands of Palestine. I've told you so many times, if I can arrange it, the last word on my lips will be Palestine. I promised long ago, 50 years ago, that I would never leave the Palestinian cause alone, and it's a promise that I have kept. No, I'm washing my hands of the slave Arabs and their useful idiots, those who know that they are living in the land of the slave Arab rulers, but who nonetheless take the shilling and keep their mouths shut. That's why when they attack me, I have to go looking for who they are, because I never heard of them before. I'm washing my hands of those. I will no longer walk on the same path as you. I'm washing my hands of the sectarians. I've always hated sectarianism. It's just me. I spent so many years in my youth being called a Fenian bastard. I've always hated sectarianism. In Scotland, a mixed marriage is one between 2 white Christians of different denominations. I cannot fathom why, when the Arab world is being looted by imperialism, people would rather suck the boots of the imperial owner of their resources than associate with a Muslim who prays differently, who holds their hand differently in prayer, and has, in the grand scheme of things, minuscule doctrinal differences with them, who believe in the same God, who believe in the same Quran, who believe in confronting Israel and the empire, but you can't work with them because it's more important to you that your own current within your own sect, within your own religion, within your own country, that's more important to you. So that's fine. That's you. I've worked with you before. I will no longer work with you again. Our paths crossed, and now they have diverged. We were together on Egypt when the dictator Sisi overthrew the elected government there and murdered the elected prime minister there and murdered many hundreds of his supporters in a public square. We were together on that. We were together on Palestine for decades. We went on convoys together over decades to try and break the siege on Gaza. We were together when Tony Blair and George W. Bush invaded and occupied Iraq. But we are no longer together because you expected me having been your hero for my stand against the invasion of Iraq by the United States and the United Kingdom, to support an invasion by the United States and the United Kingdom of the neighboring country of Syria. And I will not do it. I will be with anyone for good and with no one for ill. And as to what's good, as to what is ill, only our own consciences can dictate that. And we'll all face the judgment day, and we'll all have to answer for what we did. So I'm concentrating now on the home front, on my job as the leader of the Workers' Party of Britain. And above all, I'm concentrating on trying to avoid my own country being the main driver of World War III against Russia. So you'll see me, after this kerfuffle is finally over, much more often speaking about British, American, and NATO matters in relation to the Russian front. And that's my judgment. That's my decision. I have limited time left, and I've decided that I want to spend that time concentrating on other things. For all those who insulted me, called me a white savior, having white savior complex. Well, first of all, I don't really pass as white. If you were to go out into this country and ask the racists how white I am, you'd discover most of them don't consider me white at all. Neither am I a savior. It was my job over 50 years to give solidarity to the Arab cause, to try and build a base in Western countries that would support that Arab cause. And I never asked for any thanks for it. You don't owe me anything for it. I did it because I believed it was my duty. But I never did get anything from it. Some people say I did it for votes. Have you any idea how hard it is to be a supporter of the Palestinian resistance in Western countries? Have you any idea how powerful Israel is in British and American politics? Have you any idea? I could show you my scars, literally my scars, except they're covered by this hat, inflicted by somebody wearing an Israeli army insignia in a London street when I was a member of Parliament. If he'd had a weapon, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be dead. Like Rachel Corrie is dead. Like Tom Herndon is dead. You get dead for supporting the Arab cause in Western countries. You lose your job, as many have in the United States and Britain, for their brave efforts during the last 14 months on university campuses and in downtown demonstrations all over the Western world. Lost their jobs, got shadow banned, strangled, cut off, deplatformed. That's what you get in the West for supporting the Arab cause. Or like Richard Medhurst, like Craig Murray, like Kit Clarenberg, you get arrested at British airports and put in handcuffs and charged with terrorism. You get the police all over your case. You get them reading your emails. You get them reading your tweets. Whole sections of the security apparatus dedicated to surveillance upon them. That's what you get for supporting the Arabs in the West. So don't dare ever accuse me of having stood where I stood for personal benefit. Because I tell you something, in all modesty, if I had supported Israel rather than Palestine, I would not now be a superannuated former backbench member of Parliament. I could have gone far, you know, but I chose the side my conscience told me to choose. Now, finally, because I don't have a clock this evening and I realize I've gone over my time, finally, the two guests that we have today, Syrian Girl and Chris Hedges, are of such quality and such importance that you really should pay attention to them. Neither of them, nor myself, are Shiites or Iranians or Iranian agents or any of the other filth that is out there on the internet. We're just three people who saw the cause of Palestine and felt that it was our duty to support it. And support it. All three of us always shall. Stay tuned. Syrian Girl is up next.